Yeah, it's more of a drive. I fight with the positive attitude in a lot of ways, but I think when it comes to something that I'm passionate about, I think that's kind of comes easy.
Yeah. Well, everyone seems to think that I'm that person, but it's always been like a disconnect. Everyone thinks I'm dead confident, and I'm not at all. I'm riddled with self-doubt. And yeah, it's realizing and having, I still haven't had the full formal ADHD diagnosis, but I'm definitely ADHD. And it kind of all makes sense now that people confuse my hyperactivity and my energy for confidence, and it's complete opposite.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate more than you know. So, are we live, Philip? Are we good? Okay, hey, so Helen, we are live and good to go. I have a hard time, and I know you and Neil work together a lot doing the messages and stuff like that. So, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
try to
you
get
solo
going
now
with
for
that.
messaging.
It's so hard to do so many damn things. So, anytime people are online and they see a podcast, please know that these people are working their tails off.
Yeah, oh
Philip,
yeah, this point we're usually so stressed.
I'm in the group. Are you in the? Are you seeing it live in the group yet? Okay. How do I see it here? I've refreshed the group. Is it in an event or? Oh, there it is. I got it, Philip. Sorry. It just wasn't refreshing. Good old Comcast internet. All right. Well, we're going to get started. Welcome everybody back to the In Camera is Greater Than Photoshop. Special guest live streams, wedding edition across the pond, our favorite voice to hear on the internet. Helen Williams is here with us, and we are extremely excited. Her group, her brand, her photography, her energy is spreading across the globe, and it's captured on here in Michigan. There's a bunch of people here in Michigan that I'm just super. Michigan doesn't have a lot of things to be exciting about, especially like generally it's not tropical, it's not beautiful, it doesn't have it. I mean, it's got some cool stuff, but there's not a lot generally that we can grab onto locally. But I tell you what, photography in Michigan, we just got some rock stars, and I'm happy to say that they're so connected to the FlashMaster's group as well. It's a phenomenal group. So we're going to talk a little bit more about FlashMaster's, how Helen started it, and all that good stuff. Real quick, before we get started with this lovely lady, I do want to let everybody know that the Light 'em Up workshop, the 3-part series, we have one location in Lansing and one location in Plymouth. It is a 3-part series for people wanting to take that step into the journey of off-camera flash. I guarantee you, by the 3rd workshop, you'll be shooting great portraits with confidence. I promise. That is a guarantee. So sign up if you can. We got a couple spots left in each location. So let's get started. FlashMaster's, an amazing group. Helen, take a second just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you as a photographer and this awesome brand that you guys started.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's very different being on this side. Just before we started, I'm so used to being the person asking the questions and not answering them. So I'm hoping that my waffly nature doesn't send us down too many different sidetracks. And so I'll try to keep it brief. So yes, I'm Helen Williams of Helen Williams Photography, very unique, and also a FlashMaster's. I've been a wedding photographer here in the UK just over 9 years. And for the last year and a half, myself and my partner, Neil Redfern, have been working on FlashMasters, which is a fantastic education community in which we focus purely on off-camera flash education. And obviously we have an amazing community within that, which we're so pleased to have you with us. And we obviously have our bi-monthly awards just to celebrate all the incredible work that we have going on in the community. And it's been fantastic since joining this group to see just how many members of FlashMasters are here and how much you celebrate and champion each other as well. It's really nice. We wanted to create a very supportive community. And I feel that there's a lot where people are starting out, and Flash can be quite daunting and scary. And there's a lot of negativity or mansplaining happening in a lot of groups. They're not always the most supportive to those who are learning. And we really wanted FlashMasters to be different and to be this all-encompassing supportive group where people can ask absolutely anything. And it's really lovely to see that this community that you have here as well, Richard, is really promoting a very similar ethos. And I think I've probably not answered your question very well. But yes, we're a community who do flash photography education and awards.
So everybody, FlashMasters has insanely amazing lighting wizards across the world.
Yes.
I mean, there's I don't know how many countries that you guys do. You know how many countries you have FlashMasters in at this point? Do you know that number?
I don't actually. I do know from our
Okay,
podcast, and that was mind blowing that our podcast is listened to in 79 countries.
that is
So
insane,
that
Helen.
was
That is
like,
awesome.
we don't know. We just sit at our kitchen table opposite each other, waffle
Well,
about photography, and we have no clue who's listening. But that was literally like 79 different countries are listening to my
I love
voice.
that. That is well, you know, I think that's one thing about teaching that I'm falling in love with. It's the inspiration that you're passing on to somebody. And your group inspires me. I mean, like I go on
Oh,
there if I'm feeling dead in my creative world, you know what I mean? I know I can go to the FlashMasters website and just look through these
yeah.
people's work, and it's just like, holy crap. And like you said, the off-camera flash world is a little overwhelming if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if you don't know anything about Flash, go to flashmasters.co and look at what you can do. Look at what you
Yeah.
can create with the right education, with the right support group, with the right enthusiasm and the amount of determination. There's going to be a little bit of a financial investment throughout the journey. Photography is not a cheap hobby or
No.
job, but nonetheless, if you're struggling with Flash, if you've never tried it, you don't know nothing about it, please visit this website and just look at this work and look what is available. And in Michigan, so this year they have like a race, or not a race. That's a horror. It's kind of like a competition to, and like Helen said, bi-monthly awards where everyone can submit up to 10 images, and then they're based on a point system by fabulous judges from all over the world. Some of the best photographers, literally, in my opinion, in the world are the judges for these competitions. So it's great feedback. It's great input to see what you're doing right and where you can improve on, and how to judge a judge during a competition. And you learn little things throughout the way, but at the end of the year, at the point system, there's one fabulous photographer that has the most points that gets awarded as, the photographer of the year, FlashMasters photographer of the year. And then they have a global top 10, which is amazing because luckily I was blessed with a tied for fifth place or top 5. But we got Sandra, here from Michigan.
Yes.
Top 10. Scott Tibbles, I don't know where he stands, but I know Scott is an amazing photographer. Another FlashMasters here in Michigan. And then of
his
course
entries have been so strong.
Yeah, and of course the FlashMasters photographer of the year, Tim in Grand Rapids. So
Yes.
Michigan is strong, and obviously
really
Amber is got to be in that list as well. And Michigan does have an amazing editorial, natural light, if you will, list of photographers, and I personally, that's just not my thing, but I do enjoy it. I think a great example of a good mixture is Esteban. Esteban can kill it in it or editorial style like no other, but then turn around and just blow you away with all these colors and all this cool stuff. So Esteban's on a whole another level. But Michigan's got a ton of great photographers, but the amount of talent, I think, that is coming from the Flash community and the photography in Michigan, we're representing. So super excited for that, and to see where everyone finishes out in this next year. So if you're a Flash master, if you love Flash photography, join. It's really not that expensive whatsoever. It's not like
I have a discount code for you guys too.
Oh, so discount code. What is that discount code, Helen?
It's going to be Michigan 20.
All right. Now, is that for 20% off?
It's 20% off, and it's for the lifetime of your membership. So if you stay a member for 2 years, 5 years, every single year, your membership will be at a 20% discount.
So I want anyone that knows anything about promo codes, there's usually a 10 that's in that promo code. So FlashMaster's bringing it strong with the 20.
Yes.
So we'll make sure Helen includes that in the comments of the video as well, so everyone can go back. What's that? Oh, all right. So our man Philip already got in there. So that promo code is in the comments. But guys, join. Like you said, it's a ton of education, but it's a ton of inspiration. It's just a community that you really want to be a part of.
Yeah, I will just very quickly say as well, in terms of, I get so frustrated now that I can't enter, because when Neil and I sat down, it's nearly 2 years to the day since we had the idea, and we were discussing sort of awards and the different types of awards that were out there, and we did feel it's probably the same globally, but for us here in the UK, that most of the awards that we were seeing from different bodies and organizations were very much photojournalistic, unposed, natural light photographs, loads of black and whites. And sort of the images that we love to take and see, we never really saw represented within those awards. And there was kind of like a thought or a culture here that just posing a bride and groom, using flash on a wedding day, it seemed quite sort of taboo almost, or a bit naughty, and not really something to be celebrated, which is why obviously we created FlashMasters. And it almost gets frustrating when I take an image, I'm like, I can't enter that one. But I'm really hoping that we've created a space where like-minded photographers who do enjoy creating images and building light can feel safe together, share ideas, and learn from each other. And one other thing I'll tell you now as well, which we haven't told the rest of the community, is that hopefully by the end of this month, when our competition deadline is for the first round of this month, there will be the full leaderboards for the 3 different categories now. So as well as having the overall leaderboard, there will be separate visual leaderboards on the website for studio, for environmental, and for weddings. So yeah, each of the 3 categories will have their own individual leaderboards too. So
I absolutely love it. You know, the one thing that I'm a big, like, I do a lot of sports. Like I love the edgy branding, athletic sports type, type stuff. And obviously a lot of our colleagues and a lot of my friends are all wedding people, they can't relate to what I do. And then I got to go on to some, and I say this with a kind heart, but I can't relate to a lot of sports photographers because they're either action sports, which I just can't even, I still can't even understand how they get their focusing in so good and so quick. It's just a talent. Or you get really bad volume people that don't care about lighting. They just want to do 600 pictures in 3 seconds and sell them as fast and as much as they possibly can get out of every person. So it's hard to relate, so that's the one thing that I really enjoyed about FlashMasters is it really represented photographers that have a more wider perspective. I like fine art portrait stuff. I like doing green screen, composite weird movie posters, like our family's movie poster collection is growing and we absolutely love doing stuff like that. I like doing style, style sessions, and Tori and we do a lot of different things. So, but a lot of times that work is not really reflected in that community. And I think with FlashMasters, you really do get to see a wide variety. It's not just weddings.
No, it's inspired me hugely, and it's always so exciting to see the entries and to have photographers from all over the world shooting all different types of things. It certainly keeps me very, very inspired. And
how do you say?
Is
it Jesse and is it Dallin? Jesse and Dallin Jackson?
Yes.
I want to give those guys a shout out because I tell you what, they brought the sports game this year. And high five to you guys. I don't know if you're watching. Maybe we can get it through the line so you guys can hear it. But I love those guys. I really enjoyed seeing their work all day. But again, another couple that has insanely cool wedding stuff, but also is putting in work and doing some really cool stuff. Because I think with weddings, a lot of times we capture moments, but in studio and in style and in branding and in sports and stuff, you have to create that moment.
Yeah.
So in weddings, it's kind of cool. The energy's there, it's flowing things. But with creative portrait stuff, you really have to really think outside the box and do stuff. So I think they did a tremendous
they
job.
did. Their Astro work as well is amazing. So it's fab. There's so many of you there in the top 10 who aren't just shooting weddings, and most rounds are winning awards in all different categories, and that's just amazing to see.
So I'm excited. That's going to be a great addition.
Yeah, it
But
definitely
guys,
will be.
I think little things like that are another things of just testament on how passionate you and Neil are about not just photography and education, but how passionate you guys are about making this group something spectacular. So I'm excited to see it grow so fast, and I hope everybody watching, if you're not already a member, please visit the site, get inspired, and become a member as well. So
Thank you.
how did you start weddings? Like what's your story? How did you pick up a camera, or how did you start with
Uh,
weddings?
But I didn't start with weddings at all. No, I don't know how many of us actually, finished school going, I'm going to be a wedding photographer. And I left school and I was a teacher. So I was a high school teacher and taught theatre
Okay.
studies, performing arts, bit of English, all of the fun creative stuff. And I've
All right.
always just described myself as a creative. So if I'm writing or, painting, as long as I was being creative, I was happy. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, here in the UK, about 11 years ago, there was a change of government. Who was still in, and they didn't really appreciate the arts world very much, and basically cut all funding for the arts.
uh
And it really made our jobs as classroom teachers really very difficult indeed.
yeah.
Shout out to any teachers who are still in the education system because you all deserve an award. Maybe we just need an extra teachers award somehow in FlashMasters because they're all absolute superstars to still be working within that sector, particularly here in the UK that's so underfunded. But yes, whilst doing that, whilst more and more paperwork was coming through for my role and there was less opportunities or time to be creative, it was more just about ticking boxes and making sure you can evidence things rather than being creative with the students.
Right.
I decided at that time I needed a different creative outlet. I was purchased that was a Sony. I started Sony before Sony were cool.
Okay. All right.
I was bought a Sony DSLR, but I can't remember it would like a really basic alpha sort of, crop frame camera. And decided to go to college in the evenings to learn photography. So
Okay.
yeah, I did that for about a year and a half, just at the local college. Used to walk there from my house every evening. Not every evening, once a week. And then yeah, like most of us, got totally like hoodwinked, or just tricked into doing weddings. So I had a friend of a friend. I think we can resonate with this story, most of us, who were like, oh, you've got a good camera, or we're getting married. Can you do our wedding photos? I was like, no, no. I don't do weddings. That's way too much pressure. No, I'm not doing it. And then they came back and they were like, well, we really like you to take our photo. If we come to you, can we have an engagement session? So I thought, right, okay, that's a little less stress and pressure.
Now, is this
If
after
it
3 or 4
goes wrong,
pints?
yeah, if it goes wrong, they can just have another one done. It's not their wedding day. So they lived about 2.5 hours from me. So yeah, they traveled to meet me in a park for an engagement shoot. And at that point, I'd never even posed a couple. I'd spent my time in college walking
Right. Right.
around a college grounds of an evening with no other students really hanging around, literally photographing bins. Or just random things that you could see within a college. So to then
Yeah.
start working with a couple, I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, in typical format, like they loved them and they were like, you have to do the wedding.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so my first ever wedding, actually, it turned out it wasn't a real wedding. They'd already got married.
Oh,
And
well,
it
that
was,
took some pressure off.
yeah, but it was a winter wedding. And they had their ceremony at 5 p.m. with no natural
Oh,
light.
nice.
And I was still shooting. I don't even know if I had like an f2.8. I still might have been f4.5 kit lens, maybe
Yeah,
an f5.6.
probably. I was just
Like
gonna say maybe a 5.6.
my f5.6 2470 in a really dark hotel at 5 p.m.
Did you have a
And
flash at all, like an onboard or anything?
I did. I would have had an on-camera flash, but
Okay.
I didn't really know what I was doing. It was probably in
Yeah.
TTL. No, it definitely would have been in TTL. And I look back on those and my goodness, they're so bad. And then
But they're
every
so
year,
good. But they're so good, right? Like they're so bad. It's like, and you look at your last wedding, and you look at that wedding, and you're like, that makes it all worth
yeah, it was that bizarre. Like I did loads in sepia for their portraits, clearly because the light was shocking.
it.
There was no way you could get the white balance correct. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, loads in sepia. I think I had them like there was an entranceway. It's a very old hotel. And it was like tiled, like green subway tiles, and they had
Oh
random
no.
indoor like lampposts, like it was outdoors. And I think I had them peering round the lampposts, like looking at each other. It was the worst thing
That's
ever. And to
hilarious.
be honest, things didn't really improve for a very long time,
Yeah. No,
but
I
they
think there's
still
a,
love it.
I think we can relate to that for, and I guess it's a catch-22 depending on what your perspective is with it, but something that I've always thought is like, you can get away with being a mediocre photographer if you give remarkable experience.
Yes.
And so it's kind of tricky because you look at a horrible picture on a wall, somebody's house, and you're like, oh, hey, that's a nice family picture there. Oh my God, we had so much fun that day.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm looking at this thing going, are you kidding me? Like, oh my, you know what I mean? Just everything's
Yeah.
wrong with it. But here they are, and you know, and as an artist, you're thinking, but as a photographer, like, man, kudos to the photographer for giving this horrible photograph to these people, but making them so damn happy with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I think most people don't know anything about photography,
yeah.
and you see it so often in local, I'm going to go off now, local Facebook groups, and someone's like, oh, I'm looking for a photographer. And then, there's other photographers in your area, and you really don't rate them. And everybody's like, this person's amazing. And you're
Yeah.
like, are you kidding
No,
me?
not
Not
really.
meaning to be mean, but like
Right.
internally, you're going, are you kidding me? But
I
everyone,
always say, like,
there's
are
so
they an
many people who
amazing
don't know.
person or an amazing photographer?
Yeah,
There's two
exactly.
different things. You can be an amazing person and still have lots of clients. It doesn't make you a great photographer.
No, I'm wondering if
As
that's
far as,
me.
but I tell you
I
what,
just make
honestly,
people
like,
laugh so they love it.
I had a lot more clients when I was a crappy photographer for some reason. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I was so big. I say this all the time. I'm like, it seems like the better I get, the smaller my demographic gets. So it's a
Oh,
catch-22 to it. Like, I mean, in around here we have a lot of, the natural light studios, and we have a lot of the people are just afraid of flash, or
yeah.
don't really understand it enough to be able to take that plunge. So a lot of compensating of like, oh, I like saying I'm a natural light photographer, instead of
I was
saying,
one of those.
well, yeah, I don't know
Or
how to use
available light.
flash. Available.
I'm an available
Oh,
light photographer.
dude,
And I
that is
think those words were literally on my first website. I'm an
I'm
available
taking
light
over that
photographer.
term. I'm taking over that term. I'm using that.
Whatever light that's there, I'll use that. And to
Right.
be fair, I didn't even really understand how to really read or look at light anyway. So, but yeah, I definitely had those words. Those are like buzzwords for me. I'm an available light photographer.
That is hilarious. I am stealing that term. But yeah, I mean, it's just, and again, making that investment, like, when, when I give my clients an experience, it's an investment. I want to learn about them. I want to take time, and I don't want a 35-minute, session with some kid that doesn't want his pictures taken. If, like, if your kid doesn't love their pictures and you want me to shoot their seniors, I'm going to probably say no, because your kid's going to hate me. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be a good experience, but I'm not going to take average, I had a young lady this past, there's a natural light studio here in our area, and they had, and I'm not going to use any names, but I hope the description doesn't call these out. I don't want to sound mean or degrade the studio, or anybody that may have used it. But it's a natural light studio, and they did like the hanging flowers, like on the fish line, the
Yeah.
flowers. Cool for an Instagram high school kid with their cell phone, maybe at a selfie station in the mall, that's kind of cool. But she wanted it as part of her senior session. And I wouldn't do it. I just was just like, no, like, I don't, my work isn't that. And not to say that that's bad work or whatever, but there was probably 300 seniors in our area that have that same picture. Horrible blown out background,
Yeah.
uneven lighting because they're just windows, but they have these flowers. And sometimes people don't understand the value of really good photography nowadays, because they're flooded with horrible photography. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, the images we see, 99% of them are so technically incorrect, it's ridiculous. Like, it hurts us.
Yeah. It's so
uh
interesting though that I don't think a lot of people truly understand, or a lot of photographers truly get to grips to understanding light until they learn flash. Or I know that my understanding of how to use natural light improved drastically when I started learning flash, because there's more
Yeah.
principles, or there's just that little bit more theory and focus on it, that suddenly you're able to see light so much better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know I'm preaching to the converted in this group, but there's so many times, I've got some friends who are properly like just flash phobic, will not listen, will, been going for years and will do anything to avoid using flash. But you're like,
Yeah.
but to learn how to use flash, I guarantee will make you a better natural light photographer, but they won't listen.
No, and honestly, and again, kind of going back to some of Esteban's work, or locally here in Grand Rapids, there's a photographer by the name of Layla Trubeck. These are very, very high-end editorial styles where they're using off-camera flash, and I think sometimes people get kind of misinterpreted with flash because they see stuff like me or Neil, you know what I mean, Neil, or you see those poppy the Arno portfolio, where it's just
Yeah.
like bursting with these colors and stuff. And I think sometimes people are like, well, I'm not sure if I want my work to be that way, but they don't
Yeah.
understand that using off-camera flash doesn't mean that it's going to look like a movie poster.
Yeah.
You can use that and really even out. And until you really study flash and understand that, like you said, you don't see natural light like you need to see it. I teach a 4-step process. Something that I kind of developed into my workshops. It's called the FAST process. And the first part of that is understanding your ambient for your shot. What kind of emotion and mood are you setting with your ambient? How much do you want in? How much do you want out? And how to set that. And I tell you what, it's so surprising to me to understand how many natural light photographers that I've talked to will walk in and not understand that step. And I'm like, you're a natural light photographer. How do you read the room if you don't only read the light in the room? How are you reading everything in the room? And it's really weird. So yeah, the learning light in general is going to help you more than ever with becoming a great natural light photographer. I walked by a
No, I
photographer
totally
a couple of
agree.
years ago at a wedding. I remember this because I'm a kind of a smart ass. Sometimes I get myself into trouble, but I keep myself entertained. But I was watching her do a picture by a window of the bride, and I was curious. I want to see what it looked like, right? So I just nonchalant got a pick of the back of the camera, and I just very slightly said it very under my breath in a nice, kind voice. And as I walked away, drop your shutter 3 stops, and just walked away. And she came over to me and she was like, oh my gosh, what a huge difference. And I was like, but you were trying to expose the picture evenly, but the bride was standing next to a bright light and it was black on the other side of her. And I was like, does that make sense? And she was like, oh my gosh, it was just a light that came on in her head, but I was just like, how do you not understand that if you're a natural light photographer? But again, it's kind of what we talked about with teaching. Just
It's
because
interesting.
something's so easy to us and it makes sense to us, we have years now of experience and years of education, and we have learned from some of the best. And Helen and I talked about this on the phone a little bit, and this was what I wanted to save, and I don't want to become too transparent or not, but I kind of can relate with confidence and really being proud of ourselves, or really being confident to be able to feel like you have something to give back. Because Helen's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, why'd you pick me? And I'm like, because I think this is something where most of our community, even though Jeff Tisman better be a member by now, if he hasn't joined yet, even though our community has amazing photographers in it, a majority of our community is people that can't see that far down the journey yet. And
Yeah.
it's where that work is really, really overwhelming. And I think that's where I have really fought with myself in the confidence of saying, okay, hey, how am I going to teach? I'm going to teach photography. What, are you crazy? I'm like, well, you're just the guy, right? But then again, I have all these people messaging me all day long. I got questions that I'm answering with confidence.
Yeah.
because it's just stuff that I've learned, and I'm always learning. As everyone knows, we're always growing and getting better. So no one's ever the master. But on the other hand, you got a lot of great stuff to share. And I think people
Oh,
can relate, and they connect with sometimes people that are at our caliber, where we're producing, we're on the right track, we're growing, we're learning. And I think that's the process that me and you can inspire other people. Is Jeff? Jeff did give me a compliment on wanting to attend, because one of my goals is I want to attend one of his workshops, and he just had
oh,
one
me
not too long ago,
too.
and I was so sad that I couldn't make it. But he had made a compliment about he would like to attend, one of mine. So I do appreciate that comment. It's very sincere. But on the other hand, I don't think we're going to see photographers like that necessarily come to us for unexplained wisdom. We may share, and we may collaborate, and we may learn a little bit from each other here and there, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Esteban's not going to call me for some lighting suggestions. It's just, but on the
You
other
never
hand,
know.
there are a huge segment of photographers that would. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's where a lot of times people don't have that confidence, is because we are looking in a certain direction. But a while ago, we were looking in a whole different other direction. So there's still a ton of people that are looking over here, just because your directions change. So it's exciting to begin this journey. And I know you're in the same way, where you're just getting into that education. So don't ever doubt yourself that you always got something to give. Just your inspiration of your personality is something to give. But you have some amazing work that we're going to get into here in just a second. And we're going to break this stuff down, guys. But before we get into these pictures, just a reminder, flashmasters.co, tons of great education by this young lady, her husband, and great photographers all over the world. So, Philip, let's go ahead and pull up
This
Helen's
is where I
first image.
cringe.
Cringe? Are you kidding me? This gave me goosebumps. This is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
I
They
think
were
this is.
very drunk.
Oh, I know. Well,
Literally.
good for you for getting them out there, because that can be a talent on its own.
Oh my goodness. I've always got something to say about each image, about why it was a challenge. But this groom, this was a summer wedding. So obviously I did their portrait session sort of quite late into the evening. And before we went for evening portraits, I walked outside to hear everyone cheering. And I found the groom stood on top of a table, downing a pint of whiskey.
Oh my God.
I was like, this guy is going to kill himself. He was quite a tall, strapping guy. But even I was like, I had to dob him into the bride. And I was like, just so you know,
Oh my
he's just done
goodness.
this. We might want to go before he starts barfing somewhere. And I think just before we took this, he had to go and take a whiz behind that tree too.
That is hilarious.
This is the reality of weddings, though, isn't it? It's so nice to see what people are
Oh,
able
it's
to
so
do
hard.
in controlled conditions with models and time. And I only seem to get, or I attract couples very much like me. So yeah, this groom was absolutely wasted. So yeah, trying to shout across a lake, hold a hand, walk this way, step forward, step back was yeah. So I just feel like it's a big achievement to actually get a photo of these guys.
So were they walking, or did you just have him pose in the walking stance?
They did walk, yes. And
Okay, all right.
this is another thing that I'm terrible for. I shoot so many photos. The amount of times
Okay.
we've been on different courses or discussions, and people go, "You take how many?" And this is kind of an example of that. So yeah, they are actually walking, but I probably had them walk past the light about 3 times, and it was just trying to get some separation in his legs whilst they were blocking the light.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the height and the position of your light is absolutely money. Like I have it zoomed in, but your rim light, and we got a little heavy on the belly button, but literally, I
yeah.
mean, if you had these guys walking, you nailed this.
Ah,
I think the rim light
thank
is
you.
perfect. I love the shadows. I love the placement of his legs. That's one thing that I've learned in shots like this from Two Man. and Jesse LaPlante, is when you do
Yes.
stuff like this. So photographers, I mean, obviously your ambient, the colors, the warmth, and everything in this image really grabs my attention. But the one thing that really makes this to me is the motion that's caused by his legs being separated like that.
Yeah, I do kind of. I wish I'd had her hold the back of her dress up as well, just to give a bit more shape to her as well. So there's lots of things I could critique on different things, but
No, oh, there's always
yeah,
something that you can fix after the fact. But being in the
exactly.
moment, they're wasted. You got 2 seconds to get this shot. I think this is a remarkable job. And again, for
Thank
people
you.
looking on, when you do these types of shots, um, creating motion in their pose, a a normal positioned pose for a shot like this, you lose the bride and groom. The only reason why your eyes go, like when you close your eyes and you open it, your eyes go right to the couple. And I really do feel that your eye attention goes right there is because the separation in those legs. So that's a beautiful and a great example of capturing the right amount of ambient. You didn't make it too
Yes.
dark. It was still there. It still says blue hour. It's not dark. You still see the whole photograph from edge to edge. But again, your eyes are just attracted right to the center. So this is a beautiful image.
Thank you. I will say that this year I always felt like I needed to do my nighttime shots when it was dark. And I've totally learned that actually it's
No.
so much better during blue hour. And that's something that's only just really got into my awareness. And I used to wait until it was fully dark. And then
Yeah.
I'd always be like, oh, but there's nothing in the sky. Or like you try to, up your exposure too much and you're like, no, there is no much amount of denoise that's going to bring something back in this sky. So yeah, it's been a fairly recent revelation that actually blue hour is much better for these kind of photos than when
Right.
we'll wait until it goes dark.
We try to get like if the sparkler send off is my absolute arch nemesis. I
Yeah.
see so many gorgeous, beautiful sparkler shots, and I have yet to accomplish the one that I think that I would like to say that that's my sparkler shot.
Yeah.
But I have learned that oh, hey, we want to do a sparkler send off. And I'm like, well, let's do that right after sunset. And I have to explain to them, I'm like, yeah, I can make it dark, but if it's pitch
Yeah.
black dark out, that leaves for a lot of problems. Silhouettes and that kind of stuff maybe a little bit better, but when you're thinking about still wanting to capture some of that ambient, we can make it as dark as we want in camera, but we still need some of that natural light to obtain, especially that color. I mean, that the richness of that blue was gorgeous.
Thank you. And yeah, as most, I think, flash photographers are, I use flash because I love color and the ability that it does allow me to pull color out. So yeah, that
Yeah.
for me, I'm not really sure at which point that really twigged in my head. But yeah, it was like, oh, don't wait till it's dark for nighttime shots, blue hour. And then you
Blue
can still
hour,
get the color in the sky.
most certainly. This is we were talking about Fearless the other day, and this reminds me of that. It's just such
Oh,
beautiful colors. It's even from front to back. Her dress pops with the beads. You got the great expression. I love the clapping. I mean, all around, this is a very emotional shot that I can't imagine that your clients just absolutely. They better have at least a 16 by 20 in their house of this thing.
I think they do, and so do the venue. There's so many different images you take in your career, but this particular wedding was one that I was like, okay, I need my cape because I felt like a superhero. And I did a few posts, probably in the FlashMaster's group as well as some others. And this particular venue, we don't have many outdoor weddings in the UK because the weather's usually shocking.
Right.
But this particular venue has an outdoor setup that, unless it's sideways rain, you can get married outside. There is a proper full structure, wooden structure for the guests, and the bride and groom get married under a railway bridge, which is sort of, quite quirky and different. So the
Yeah.
majority of weddings here are done outside. And it's good because this interior room is absolutely awful. You've got the beautiful stone, it looks nice. However, there's the only light that they have Sort of the room's separated into two bits of the ceiling, but there's like LED strip lights around the edge that are
Oh,
pink. They don't
oh
have it in
Lord.
like a natural or like a warm white, or you only have
Yeah.
rainbow colors or pink.
Yeah.
And that pink light is lighting the walls.
I can
So
kind of
there
see
is
it in the upper left-hand corner there. You can see some pink on that rock in there.
yeah, the entire room has just got a pink haze, and there's no directional light whatsoever coming from any direction. So it's absolutely horrific. So yeah, I actually flash lit the ceremony, which is something very rarely done here in the UK. I seem to get
Okay.
tagged quite a bit now by other photographers going, "Oh, I flashed a ceremony and no one killed me, like no one kicked off." Um, People, yeah, particularly in the UK, photographers do not flash ceremonies, or very few do.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that I taught. And I had my first sort of big speaking gig this year at a conference called Nine Dots in Leeds. And I did that on flashing family portraits and sort of ceremonies, and very much about trying to take the fear out of it. I really feel like flash photography in the UK for weddings is is still very much kind of pushed against
I love that.
by many
I
members of the community.
I love, I mean, obviously I like using flash during the ceremony, but on the other hand, I like the idea that trend setting, you know what I mean? Like it's against the grain. It's not what everyone else is doing. It's you have the confidence to step out and do something like that. Again, I mean, there's another confidence. I mean, you have confidence in there. Like you are, your images are trend setting. So when you step out now, if your images were horrible, everyone would be like, "Oh, Helen, you shouldn't be using flash during a ceremony," right? But you create some incredible, incredible work. So it's good. Again, you're making other photographers step out of their comfort zone and
Yeah,
having the attitude. Sometimes I think sometimes photographers, and I did for many, many years, we're always afraid.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I don't want to upset anybody. Well, if I'm confident in what I'm going to produce from upsetting that one person, it's worth it to me. And it took me many, many years to be able to have that perspective. Um, but it proves point every time, where the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. And when you go out, and that's what I liked about the fearless kind of the idea, was just stepping out of that comfort zone and saying, hey, you know what, like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out at the altar all wedding and block everyone's view. I'm not that guy. I'm not an idiot. But on the other hand, at my wedding on New Year's Eve, I literally duck walked all the way to the altar because they were holding their hands in a certain way, and I only had a 17-35 on me, and I wanted that really close perspective to their hands in that V shape. And so I duck walked my ass all the way up to the altar, and I got my shot, and I duck walked my ass all the way back, and I was at the back of the. But years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, I can't do that. I can't go anywhere near the altar. But the shot is phenomenal. I absolutely love it, and I think that's. I always say, like, what did you say? I'd rather apologize and have the shot than ask and not get it.
Oh, 100%. So yeah, in terms of setting up, everybody's like, no, someone's going to complain. The registrars won't let you. I'm like, I don't let the registrars tell me no. I don't give them an option.
No,
And this particular
exactly.
venue, I don't work. This is my first time working at this venue. I don't work in that area often. I know sort of my local venues, that the registrars who come to do the ceremonies on the whole know who I am. And when I rock up, they know I might use flash, or it's not even a
Yeah.
conversation. And it
Yep.
was sort of the same, lots of people are kind of too scared to put them up because someone might object or someone might tell them no. And I'm like, no, you put them up. This is what you need. This is
Yeah.
your job, and
That's your
you
job,
need
right?
to add that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about me who, we were speaking before the stream as well. I think because I'm such a bubbly sort of personality, people think that I'm very confident, and I'm so riddled with self-doubt. However, there's something about just strapping my cameras on that kind of, I don't know, maybe you take on a different role. Or I know that I'm terrified. I'm going off on a tangent now. I'm terrified of spiders. And when I first got my first camera, I had a macro lens, and I was able to photograph like garden spiders and get close to them. And yet, if I didn't have a camera in my hand, I would be screaming and running in the opposite direction, wanting to burn the entire place down. Um, But there's something about, I don't know, having my cameras or holding my camera up to my face kind of just takes the kind of me out of it. It's kind of my camera and what I'm doing. So yeah, I don't know on a wedding day, although I'm someone generally who's incredibly conscientious, probably way too much. I'm
Right.
always worrying what people think of me, what people might say. But I don't know when it comes to my cameras going on and me photographing a wedding day, it's like it's my job to produce the best images for my couples. And if I
Yeah.
need to put a flash up, then that is what I'm going to do. And I don't approach it as like, oh, do you think, or could I maybe put a flash up? Or I hope you don't mind. It's like
No.
my flashes are there. I need them there. And I don't even invite a conversation or give
Yep.
someone the permission to tell me no, which I think a lot of photographers think will happen or are too scared to do it because they don't want that confrontation. But yeah, so far, no confrontation at all. But yeah, this particular room was horrific.
So
And
did
then
you?
just for,
Oh, go
sorry
ahead. I'm sorry. No, go
before
ahead. You
I
first.
delivered this image, or before I delivered the gallery, I delivered a couple of images from the ceremony, a couple from the front, and this one here. And I was immediately invited onto their recommended suppliers list. I was at their next open day. I turned up at the open day, and this particular image was printed huge,
Oh,
on
that's
a
so rewarding.
huge canvas. And they were
Good for
like,
you.
yeah. The marketing lady who worked for them was like, we've been open. It's still a fairly new venue, but they've been open about 3 years. And she was like, this is the first time we have a photograph of this room that we want to share. And she was just absolutely thrilled. So I think
Oh,
I've
nice.
very much annoyed and upset the regular photographers at that venue because I've literally turned up once and now I'm the best thing since sliced bread. So it certainly pays. That's proper British, I think, isn't it, to say the best thing since sliced bread? Is that a thing in
I
America? Is that a saying?
Oh no, that is yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
No, that's
okay.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's not commonly said anymore, but it would be something maybe a generation or two ago would say. Something that I
Hopefully it comes across
appreciate because
cute.
I like the old people. I love the wisdom and the things that old people do. So I appreciate those old sayings like that. So
Throw me on the old people pile.
right.
But yeah, literally this one wedding and just the previews from this wedding, I think have put quite a few photographers, their sort of noses out of joint because I've just rocked up. But there's certain photographers there who I know. If there's even no, I won't say there's members of our community who usually shoot there, who I know can shoot this, but haven't. And I think now that they
Just
will,
because of the
it's just
flash fear.
it's putting
Yeah.
it out there and just going, no, this is what I need. So yeah, I'm just really pleased that I took this shot and that I used my flash and I had it all set up ahead of time. And yeah, sometimes you've just got to go for it. And I did, and it's really paid off on this one.
So two questions. Because of the pink room, did you use a CTG in the flash? And then
No.
second question is where is your where are like how many flashes do you have and where are they positioned in the picture?
So for this particular image, there's two flashes. During the ceremony, I set up three. So for the ceremony, I was based obviously on the bride's side in that corner. So for the front of ceremony, I just had two 8200s. The low ceiling, that although there's pink sort of lighting, the ceiling's white itself. So I had two 8200s bounced off the ceiling to light sort of the bride and groom and the sort of VIPs at the front. And then I also had a third light, which on this image I've cloned out. It would have been top left as you look at it. So
Okay.
you can see a gentleman's head who's quite tall peeking. The
Yep.
light would have just been there. So I put that one there initially because as they were walking down the aisle, if I was only having my lights at the front, it wasn't going to be hitting the bride and her bridesmaids as they were coming down. So I put one halfway down to try and get some light consistent sort of down
Yeah.
the aisle. And then when I took this photo, which is obviously as they're coming back out of the ceremony, I left the light that was halfway down the aisle, which is lighting them. And then I brought the two 8200s to the back with me. I turned one off and then I just had one, I think, to my camera right. And that was also just bounce lit. So yeah, no
Okay.
sort of color correction gels, two lights. And yeah, they were both just not even any modifiers, just bouncing off the ceiling
Okay.
there.
So just no spheres, no boxes, no nothing. It was just raw flash bounced a little bit.
Yeah, it's very rare
Okay.
that I don't use any kind of modifiers. But yeah, for this one, it was a very low ceiling, all white. So I thought, well, I've just got a massive softbox above everyone, and I'll, instead of killing flash power by using a sphere, I'm just gonna bounce it on up and see what happens.
Well, it turned out phenomenal.
Thank you. I was very pleased with this one.
Let's see. What is is this like a survey? Have you do you see that? Duh. Everyone's got to take the FlashMaster survey. I don't know how many have taken it so far, but that's funny. All right, so Philip, let's go on to our next one. Ooh, so do you got mad ups like a basketball player? Are you floating in the air with some magical dust or drone at ladder? Like, walk us through this one because this is
This
gorgeous.
this was my first ever portrait that I took with my DJI Mini 3 drone.
Okay.
So yeah, I've just included this because well, I was very pleased that I managed to get this, and it's quite funny that within the sort of local community that I'm part of, I'm now very well known for crashing my drone in a lake.
Oh no.
Um, So I think I managed to do this wedding and it stayed in one piece. First of all, I'd never wanted to use a drone. I have quite a few friends who, had drones and did all the
Yeah.
licenses and do FPV. And they were like, Helen, like, you need a drone. I'm like, I am so clumsy. Like, no, I can't be trusted with a drone. It's going to fly away. I'll crash it into a tree. Like, the chaos will follow. I can't be trusted with a drone. And then the Mini 3 Pro came out, which in the UK meant that you didn't need to do all of the full tests with it. You could
Yeah.
just, get insurance and do your, I think, an aviation form and off you go. So Neil got one, and I was like, oh, actually, he's like, Helen, I promise you can't crash. There's obstacle avoidance, like, I promise you. And then he forced me to go out and have a go, and I was instantly hooked.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this is my first time ever using a drone to take this kind of image. And since then, I've been asked to do this image so many more times. Like
Yeah.
I said, the
Heck yeah.
second time went wrong. I literally landed. I'm gonna have to go into the landing the drone. I literally landed. I didn't even crash the drone. I landed the drone in the lake. So actually, this is going to be anyone who wants to take this image, do not put your drone up before you've done it, or do not leave it stationary over a lake while sorting the bride and groom. Because what I did was, as I was getting the bride and groom into position, and I always like to, get those hands close. And one other thing, I've cropped this one quite tight because I forgot to ask the groom to cross his legs over. Or it might have been
Okay.
after this when I learned to like kind of cross their legs across their feet at their ankles, because if they
At their
don't, they just
ankles.
kind of just look a bit dead, if I'm
Yeah.
honest.
Yep. No, I
And
get you.
I forgot to tell the groom to do that, and I was like, oh, his legs just look a bit odd there, so I've cropped it in. But yeah, the other wedding that I did after this, getting all cocky and confident, sent it up beforehand, had it in the air, and then I think I was fluffing the bride's dress because I usually shoot solo. I don't have an assistant or someone to help me,
Okay.
and whilst I had my sort of Mini 3 Pro with me. I put the controller on top of the bag because I didn't want to put it down on the jetty because then I might kick that into the lake. So I put it on my person. However, when I bent down, I was arranging the bride's dress. My elbow hit the controller and it pressed down. And just before I got back up, all I could hear was landing.
Yeah.
I can't repeat what I said at that point. We're going to be boosted off Facebook. And the last thing that we saw on the controller was literally my face turned, and then all we could see was just bubbles as it went down. So
Oh
yeah,
no.
this particular drone is now a submarine in the bottom of a lake. But I did a whole wedding without breaking it. It was only my second wedding that I crashed, but I
And
haven't
you were
done that.
able still to recover the image.
No. It was gone, and that was before.
Was
So
it?
there's two errors that I made. Obviously, I should have, if I was going to send it up, I should have still left it over, somewhere we could land safely again, not leave it over a lake. And that was before I realized that you could have an SD card in the actual controller too.
Yeah.
So yeah, the image that I was going to take that day, that went down to the bottom of the lake
Uh,
as well.
yeah.
So But anyway, that was a very long story about crashing drones in lakes.
Well,
Yeah, if
I
you're
think
gonna have a drone, just be careful around the water.
hopefully it'll be valuable to somebody. And I tell you, just to give a little plug, obviously, like we're not sponsored by DJI, but I have the Mavic 3 Pro as well.
Yeah,
We've got some videographers and we've had the FAA, licensing and stuff like that. But a lot of photographers think that because if you have a drone, you do have to have this licensing, or if you get a small one, you're not going to be able to produce the type of quality out of it that you want to. But I think this is a great example, guys. If you're in the thought process of thinking that a drone would be something fun, that Mavic Pro 3 is incredible. What is it?
it is.
The Mini 3 is
Yeah,
incredible. It's light. You don't need a license. You don't need a big FAA license for it.
no.
But it has the controller or the screen right on the controller.
Yeah,
So
on the
it's
pro
literally
version,
just,
yeah.
yeah, with the Fly More bundle, that's what we have.
Yeah.
So having that is so easy to make the drone accessible. I never used it because I was like, oh, I got to get my phone and then I got to do this. And
Yeah.
you're in the middle of a wedding and you don't have time to go to the bathroom, let alone to set up a drone like that. So if you don't have an assistant, but that's a great product. So if you're on the verge, check it out, because you can grab amazing images that you would not be able to get otherwise, unless you brought some scaffolding or something weird.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it now, and nearly every single wedding that comes out. So yeah, everybody's like, how are you getting brides to lie down on the floor? But once again, it's like, just don't give them permission to say no.
Yeah,
I've
no,
got this
just
amazing idea, this amazing shot. Like, I just don't even ask, do you mind lying
yeah.
down in a field? It's like, no, I've got an amazing idea. This is what we're going to do. And they just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the rapport that you build with your clients, that they trust you, or your work that they've seen where they trust you. But also, like, we see things differently, and our clients know this, and that's why they've invested into us, and that's why we're there capturing their wedding. So when you work with your client, when you build that trust with your client before the wedding, that gives you the confidence and the ability to do things like that, where if you would have asked her, she may have said no, because she had no vision of what you were going to create. But when your clients trust you, she'll lay down in the field and get this picture that she has no idea what it's going to look like, and then when you show it to her, she falls in love.
Yeah.
So again, yeah,
It's,
just being
yeah.
assertive and getting your job done.
Yeah, and just be excited as well. The last few months of last year, Neil and I were so grateful and lucky to work with some amazing photographers who came to the UK. So our ambassadors, Jessie and Moira LaPlante, we modelled with Jason Vincent as well, and we modelled at their workshop in Leeds. Which was terrifying. Equally, I hate having my photo taken. But there's one particular image that Jason took, and he was waiting and praying for it to rain, and it did. And when it did, he sort of ran straight back inside. He was like, guys, it's raining, let's go. And Neil and I were like, yeah, and so pumped. And it's just, it's very much, it's so important how you approach these things with your clients. And if you've got the confidence and you're super enthusiastic, then you're not really giving them any way to or reason to say no. So it's how you approach things with your clients that sort of really help them, do
I think
these
so
things
too.
for you.
And again, and from the get-go, I mean, obviously you want to build that trust and stuff during the sales process and from the first conversation that you have with them, but also building the trust with them in your work. So again, when you do pull out some crazy request, they don't question it. They really just understand and go with the flow, and let you be creative. And to me, that's my favorite kind of clients. My clients, this New Year's Eve wedding, they just let me do whatever I wanted. And it's not easy to find clients like that, maybe. But I think that's something for me personally that I'm working towards is just to build that trust with our clients, where, because in the moment, we can think of some pretty weird stuff for our clients to do. That it is going to be an amazing shot, and sometimes you don't get it. And sometimes the clients are like, no, or they're too drunk, or whatever. They don't have enough time. And there's shots that I still think about that I didn't get the opportunity to take that I still want to go back and take. So that's a good point. I think people really, to get that shot didn't just start in that moment. The trust for that shot started way before that. Speaking of two of those people that you just mentioned, we have the two incredible photographers that you just mentioned. We have coming up, and I want to get these dates right. That's why I wanted to pull this over here. February 1st, we have Jason coming on. So he is our next guest. And then Jesse, I believe it is, please look at the ad for this, people, if you're listening, don't call me. I think it's March 14th, March 17th, something like that. Jesse's coming. So
wow.
That's so funny. Our next two guests are those two people. And again, I think a lot of times we're connected in our networking group of photographers. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't know about these amazing photographers from around the country and around the world. So everybody, to get ready for our next two special guest live streams, I want you just to dive deep, look for Vincent images, LaPlante photos. Jesse and Maura and Jason are insanely cool. Jason's literally, he's probably in my top 5. I mean, the way he's working, the way he works and sees light. I think the way he sees light is just, the angles that this guy gets in his photos are just phenomenal. So I'm excited. And yeah, being in a company of photographers like that and getting your picture taken and being on the other side is intimidating. I learned the word smolder. Jesse and Maura are both very intellectually, very, very brilliant people. They're very, very smart. So
they're very good friends now.
Jesse's vocabulary is, I enjoy listening to a conversation to him because he always pull out 1 or 2 words and I'm like, that's the big person word. And so we're sitting in Vegas last year at WPPI, and he had asked Tori and I to do some models for a photo walk. And that was the first time that I had ever been on the other side of the camera. And so I learned a really cool word that I've actually used in almost every single session that I've ever had since with a guy, and it's the term smolder. I don't know if I'm just, I got college education. Maybe I just vocabulary just doesn't go that far, but it's not a word I use every day. And it was a smolder, and it's just like to give this really cool stern look. Yeah, right.
That's the best I've ever done it. I'm so awkward in front of the camera. I can talk, but like trying to do something in front of the camera, like photo wise, I was terrible. Neil can smolder. I just laugh hysterically. Well, so
I found it to be the most comfortable place to be, because the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I look like an idiot. So that smoldering look kind of came natural during those moments. But when you're in company like that, as a photographer, when I try not to superstar anybody, because we're all humans and we're just all people doing our own thing, but on the other hand, as a photographer, I look up to these people's work, and then I meet them and they're just as cool of people as they are photographers. So it's an incredible thing to be around. And that's why I encourage, people to get out and do these workshops. And if somebody ever tells you that education is not worth the investment, then they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You know what I mean? It's really,
forget spending money on kits, education every time.
Why would you want to do that when you have resources locally and nationally and internationally? Now, you may not want to go out and spend $3,800 on a 2-man educational process, but I tell you what, I would love to.
I did.
I would. You did? Oh, I can't wait.
I did. I should have seen them in Barcelona. Yeah, I booked onto the 2-man. I should have done their last sort of, their last cohort in Barcelona. And literally, I think 2 weeks before we should have done the Barcelona course, COVID hit. And that was the worst bit of COVID. I was like, what? I don't get to do 2-man. But yeah, I enrolled on 2-man U instead. But I'm someone who's always invested in education. And that's probably because my background's in education and being a teacher, and I've always done a lot of training from my past career. I've been to 3 different universities, I know the benefits of education, and that's something that I've always carried on. And
Well,
every
people ask
single
me
year
about
I'll
that.
book on.
They ask me about like, like, oh, this picture, and then I'll bring up education, and then they'll be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you were just all over. You know what I mean? Like you were just, oh, this is shot, this that you did. And I was like, I learned this from education. Like
Yeah.
I went to this workshop, or I studied this person, or I asked this person directly. Amber's been a great resource. I always feel,
Ah,
and she's in my backyard, so like she
yeah.
lives like an hour and a half from me, so it's, we haven't collaborated in a sense, but I always feel that she gives me an honest feedback.
Yeah.
She gives me honest information. And having a resource like that is so valuable. And I think we need to start looking at, I wish more photographers would look at it like that, where maybe Helen's not a 2-man, or maybe Richard's not an Esteban, or, but on the other hand, when you're putting out work that or somebody's putting out work that you don't know how to do, and you're inspired by that, why wouldn't you want to go learn? And I love the idea that I heard this from, it might have been Jesse or Esteban, but it was steal. Was it steal from everybody, copy from no one?
Yeah. I'm saying yes, but I like the saying.
That's not how it was said, but you get the gist of
Yeah.
what I mean. And that's what I tell everybody. Like, I don't want, I hate when people ask what settings are. Like, wait, what settings are your cameras? Like, well, don't do that, please. Understand the principle behind it, because settings will change. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they really don't understand that. But find what you love about something, and then go make it your own. But you can't do that until you learn what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
painting. It's like going to one of those classes, or the painting and wine classes, right? So you get drunk with your friends, and you make this cool painting that everyone else made. And you go home and you're like, oh, look at this painting I made. Like, oh, cool. Here's a blank canvas. Can you do it again? And then the second time, it just looks atrocious, because you didn't learn how to paint. Someone showed you what to do to, you know what I mean? And I think photography is like that. It's kind of like where you look at it like style shoots. Style shoots are cool. Style shoots are fun. I get this when I go to like conferences and stuff. People are like, hey, where's your camera? I'm like, I'm not here to shoot pictures. I'm here to learn what I don't want the same picture that 400 people just took. Like, that's cool. Maybe some people love that. And I'm not knocking that, but I want to understand what learning is. And until and some educators show, and some other educators teach. I think there's a difference. So I think from all the stuff that I've watched on FlashMaster's, I think your teaching background really comes into play there, because you do a great job. So
Thank you.
this last one is got a special little spot in my heart, because I am a DJ. I'm also a photographer, but I love the DJ side of our industry, and I love the what is it, the frozen fog, or
Dry ice, is it? Dry ice?
the dry ice
Yeah.
fog. Yeah. Super cool effect. But I think for me, what really makes this picture, besides the bride's amazing smile in that right before that, it's like that Hollywood kiss. It's
It
perfectly
was.
timed. So kudos to the photographer for that perfect timing on that shot. But I love the girls with their hands up. I love the people with the smiles looking at the phone. I like grandma in the front row. Just, you know what I mean? Like, there's
I don't know
so
what
much.
she's watching.
I know, right?
She
But
thought
there
I'd
is
be
so
like,
much.
is it time to go?
She was probably thinking about her first dance back then. Or maybe she was wondering what the hell the guy behind her was wearing. Like, why'd you decide to wear that suit, buddy? But
She's zoned out though.
there's so much going on in this photo. But when you look at it initially, you don't see the story behind the bride and groom, because you're captivated in the bride's smile. Your direction of light, even with your off-camera flash coming in the upper right-hand corner, your eyes don't go there. Your eyes go to that smile on that bride. And I think the lighting on her dress and the way his jacket is right there. I think that really helps the direction of the eyes. But I love when a picture, when you look at the immediate thing, but then your eyes just start to wander and it just starts to tell the story of the moment. And I think to be able to get a great moment like that, but then also to be able to get the story into it is like, if you would have had a tight crop on that couple, the story would have been that kiss. But we would have missed the real moment, and you caught the real moment here. And it's encompassed all of the good stuff about it. It's the moment of the bride and groom, but it's also the moment of everybody enjoying that moment as well. So, and I love the framing of the ceiling draperies. I love the lines in the ceiling draperies.
I look and go, I'm not so keen on my composition on this one. I'm going to blame the DJ. I'm not quite central because his booth was there. I
Right,
probably
right.
should have been a little bit lower. Yeah, there's loads I could critique, and I probably should have been lower, and I should have been a little step to the right. But like I said, that's where the DJ booth was. So
Yeah. Now, so if you would have went lower, do you think you would have captured the depth of the room? I love the red on the back
good
wall back
point.
there.
Yeah, that is a good point. But I like there's lots of color on the drape, so I could have maybe had a bit more twinkle and color. But
Yeah.
you know what? It is what it is. It's a lovely moment. The bride and groom love it. So it's easy to like critique and go back and go, oh, but
Isn't it easy
I did the best
afterwards?
with what I had.
It's so easy afterwards when you're sitting at your home, you're sitting in front of a computer and you're like, oh, I should have done this and I should have done this. And you're like, why didn't I think of that in the moment? And it's like, it's so
Yeah.
hard
Next
because there's
time.
so many factors. And that's where experience comes in, because there are some things that you could look at and be like, oh, I could have fixed that. And
Yeah.
then there's some of them that are just like, yeah, it would have been a natural fix or a lucky occurrence, or but I think you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. I will say I was terrified. I moved from here. I was up on the stage at this point. There was just a low rise stage. And when I walked onto the dance floor as everyone else joined them, I was terrified just because I couldn't see the floor.
Right,
It's like
right.
somewhere inside my head, there were monsters inside the fog. And it's like I couldn't even, I don't, it wasn't like there were small children in there or anything, but I was scared to move.
That's awesome. So
Sorry,
now
another useless piece of information.
I see this light on the right. Are there any other lights that you're using in this, or is it all just that one? It looks like there might be another one, but is there one or two?
But there should be another three. Whether they all
Three?
fired,
Okay.
actually looking now, they probably wouldn't. Yeah, first dance, I usually just set up in each corner a flash pointed in. I'll grid them where possible. I think I had enough grids. This one's probably last spring. No, 2 years ago in spring. So yeah,
Okay.
I usually grid them all, just pointing inwards, because it just means as I'm moving around from whichever angle I'm shooting that I've got sort of light coming in to hit the
Of course.
couple. I don't tend to stay in one spot for very long.
Now,
Um,
what is your camera brand? What is it? What is your choice? What do you shoot?
I'm
Are you
shooting
Canon?
Sony.
You still are so okay. So you stayed with Sony. Okay.
I did actually go to Canon because when I shot my first wedding, or when I knew that I wanted to take photos, I thought professionals use Canon. So
Yeah.
I sold all my Sony gear because the professionals use Canon, and then I came back around to Sony anyway. So, but yeah, I was
I think
Sony before
Esteban would
Sony
still
was
agree with you,
cool.
though. I think Esteban would still agree that the Sony is. I love his Sony jokes. I could care personally. I think Sony's focusing systems are absolutely nuts.
Amazing.
Jason's actually, he's got that new Sony that he's been doing a lot of
A93.
really cool videos on that shutter.
Yes.
And I don't know if I think this is, I'm not sure if this is, I don't know why this would be on his personal page and not on his business page, but if you guys, again, Vincent Images, he's got some really cool explanations of some nerdy lighting stuff. So if you're a light nerd and you really want to understand things, Jason does a really, really good job. What's that? What is the shutter called? Global
Global
shutter.
shutter.
Yeah, he has a really good explanation on the global shutter. And something that I really didn't even think about until after I watched his video, about not necessarily like how powerful your flash is, but how much time in your shutter do you give your light to be able to get to that full power. So I don't want to go into it too far. Watch the video. It's a great introduction to to lighting and understanding that as well. But so Sony, is there anything that stands out from Sony that what was it that made you go back to Sony?
Because I was a terrible pixel peeper. And back in the DSLR days, oh my, the obsession with zooming on in and missed focus, or just going, is that really sharp? I got really obsessed with pixel peeping. And obviously back in the DSLR days, it just wasn't what it is, as you know, with the Sony and having the focus eye tracking, you know,
Yeah.
you very rarely miss focus these days now. But yeah, I'm just
Oh, I
also
shoot
so
Nikon. We still miss focus sometimes.
well, you'd never know. But yeah, especially being someone like me who's super clumsy, as mentioned, like I like to crash drones, I like to drop lenses, I like to take them off my body really quickly, put them down somewhere and let them roll on the floor. Um,
Yeah.
I've never ever sold a single piece of photography equipment because I've always broken it first. So yeah, especially when like lenses needed to be calibrated a bit more on the DSLR days, like the amount of times, you know, once a year, send them my camera to have the sensors cleaned and then just to try and reconfigure the lenses to them. And yeah, the amount of times I'm like, yeah, Helen, this is goosed. So yeah, I had another photographer just at a wedding. Actually, they were photographers and videographers, and they just switched to Sony, and they were like, "Try this, Helen," and I was just instantly sold on the focus. So yeah, all about
I appreciate the focus out of the Sonys. And again, I love Nikon. I can't imagine ever going fully away from Nikon at this point. It's been 24 years, 25 years now that I've been
you
shooting
don't
Nikon.
look old enough for that.
I appreciate you. I turned 50 this year. So
What?
yeah, I got some wear and tear on my tires, but
Wow.
we're gonna keep it
You
as young
referred
as
to me as
possible.
young lady. I thought I was just as old as you. I was like, oh, that's sweet. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm just as old as he is, but no, you're ancient.
my my, my better half keeps me young. She is an all-star. I can't believe she fell in love with an old guy like me. I am so lucky and
Oh,
blessed to have such an amazing life partner. She's incredible, but yeah, she keeps me young. I got an 11-year-old son, so he keeps me young as well. So I'm going to try to not feel 50 this year as much as I can.
good.
After a day at a wedding, I feel every bit of it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm turning
Yeah.
40 this year and I'm definitely
So
feeling it the
you're
day
turning
after.
40. Oh, wow. I would not have guessed you to be that old either. So you are doing very,
Ah,
very, whatever they're putting in the tea and crumpets out there, keep it up.
I'm sure it's just the filters that everything applies to.
Well, I tell you what, talk about faces. This girl right here, I absolutely love this. Now this is when you tag FlashMasters. Is this the picture that comes up?
Quite often, yes.
I
Neil's
love
in
this
charge of
picture.
this. So yeah, I'm like, I don't want to use one of my photos. And Neil's
I
like, no, this
absolutely
still
love it.
has to be there.
I love what happens because you try to figure this, like you look at it initially and you try to figure out what the hell's going on right here. Like, is she jumping up? Is this, and then you see the girls' faces at the bottom right of the frame. And it totally just puts it into perspective that this chick is getting swung around on another girl's belly.
Yep.
Uh, now, how is that? Now, how'd you get lucky enough to light this? Walk us through how you lit this shot.
Well, for me, as soon as first dance is over, I know I start with the four lights. As soon as other people join the dance floor, then I grab one of my flash guns, usually a V863. At this point, this was before I found what we call the Buckland method in the FlashMasters group, where it's literally just putting a light on a pole or a monopod or a quick stick and using
Yeah.
that there. But I literally would have just been hand holding a light, bare flash.
Okay.
And yeah, so my settings for dance floor is pretty much the same every single wedding. And I always go to ISO 400, 10th, anywhere between 10th and a 20th of a second, F9. And then because I back button focus, whenever I go to a group or an area, I'll get
Yeah.
focused on one person and then I can just shoot through moments.
Do you
So yeah,
front curtain or rear?
front actually, I used to
Yeah.
go rear.
Yeah.
Um,
we just had this conversation at our New Year's event, because this technique people love, you know what I mean? And as photographer, you see these really cool shutter drags that just really just capture the motion and the energy of a photo. And it's a really tough concept to really understand, I think, because you really have to set your settings really weird. Like it's not a, you know, if you're just shooting, trying to get even pictures, these are not the settings that you want to have. But being able to, I like the control of being able to know that I got the right facial expression, and then everything else can drag out from there. I could care less what happens after. The only time that I like the rear is when I'm doing like a track person, and it has to be intentional motion. And then you know, then the rear. But I tell you, the front curtain makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot more fun, and it produces just as cool.
Yeah. I remember always being told it had to be reoccurring. And I'm sure this is something I struggled with dance floor when I went from DSLR back to mirrorless and then switched back to Sony. And I don't know, it just took me some time to really get back into shooting dance floors as I used to. But yeah, it started to re-click for me again. And I think I changed over. I didn't really think about it or forgot to change to reoccurring. And then I looked at the images and I was like, I don't really see much difference.
No.
Plus, obviously, with the live view that I have on my Sony, as soon as you take the photo, it quickly pops up on my screen and I know what I'm getting immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I much prefer to use the front shutter because I know when I click the button, that's the moment I'm getting. But I'm pressing the button and then half a second later, you've got a totally different sort of moment or face being pulled. So yeah,
no, I
that
love
was
it.
person.
Now Jason has that signature shot that he does, and I still don't know exactly how it does, and you probably learned it at the workshop. So maybe we can talk later about that, and you can share that secret. But I love that motion shot that he does when he uses, and I'm thinking it's something along those lines. You know what shot I'm talking about?
Oh yes. To be fair, whilst we didn't go to the whole day, and I think when he
Okay.
explained that was in the morning. Neil and I
Oh,
sort of
gotcha. Okay.
arrived a little bit later.
Well, I don't want to disclose it because I want
hit.
people to join his educational channel, or I want him to learn it, because it is a really cool shot. And to me, when I see that, that just says, you know, him, you know, so
With
I
the
don't want to
multi flashes, that I'm sure is the
yeah,
multi mode. I'm not sure whether he's just
I'm not
using the
sure
multi
what it
mode on the flash to trigger
is.
so many times, whether he's manually sort of like pressing the trigger and moving at the same time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's a
See if
wizard.
you can
So
find out on your stream.
cool. Well, I tell you what, this was a unique image, and Helen, I'm glad that you did it. I'm glad that you did incorporate this, because I think sometimes I know I shoot for photos on how they're going to look when I deliver them, and sometimes it doesn't look like that when it comes off the camera. And as much as I want to do everything I can in camera, there's sometimes, especially with underexposed things, if the light is in the right places, you got a great image. And this is a great example where maybe you took this image on your camera and you're just, I think this is a good example for somebody maybe just learning, you know, or just getting started. You got that one light over the couple and you got this image, but your sky is gorgeous. Your colors in the windows are true. And I'm hoping that that's what you saw when you got this on the camera. You said, oh, that's a bit dark, but I know the capabilities of what this picture is going to be. And I think a lot of times, and I see this in my creative lighting workshops, people are like, oh, this sucks. And I'm like, but whoa, don't delete that. Look where the light is. The light is in the right spots. We have enough dynamic range in our cameras nowadays to really do some cool stuff. So Helen, this is a great example because I love the image. It's a stunning, captivating image. I love the venue. I mean, I'm so jealous of your country's heritage where you have architecture and buildings. Now we have some stuff in the East Coast that are kind of cool. And so, you know, we have some spots around, but when I think of the UK and I think of Europe, these old stone buildings and these really cool, you know, structures are what come to mind for me. So, wow, look at that.
That's just Lightroom. So yeah, that's before I've taken into Photoshop. That's just what I dragged out in Lightroom.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that that wasn't too much to get it there. Am I
No,
wrong,
not
or
at
did you work
all.
on this? This was just a little couple slides, wasn't it? To bring
Yeah,
that
I
building back?
very much, yeah. Generally, when I'm shooting, like I said I want to get maximum color. I knew there was interest in the sky, and there was color there that I could use and pull out. I'd
Hmm.
rather do that than sort of add in a fake sky. Um, but yeah, particularly the reason I enjoyed, I put this one in as well, just feeling extra proud was again I didn't have an assistant. The person holding the flash stand is the wedding coordinator. This is in November. It was a freezing cold day. They got married quite late, so the light had pretty much already gone.
Yeah.
And because yeah, the couple wanted photos, but they didn't really. Yeah, usually in the UK, if I've got 10 minutes with them all day, I've done well. So yeah, this was the wedding coordinator's like tapping a watch, and I was like, just grab that flash and hold it as I'm shouting from the other side of the castle. Whilst I'm running, obviously away from the bride and groom, I was like, just grab that light. I'm
Right.
sprinting, I'm sprinting to the other side of the castle, and I am someone who is so haphazard on a wedding day. My vision and how I work is very much like how I speak. It's an absolute mess. But yeah, you just kind of know what your camera can and can't do. So I didn't want to overexpose anything on the sky. I wanted to keep all the detail in that. So I was more than happy to sort of underexpose everything and then
Hmm.
bring everything up in post. But yeah, the lady holding the light, she should have been a bit closer, a bit higher. But yeah, she was just a wedding coordinator. I didn't have the time, and I think it finished image I'm quite pleased with.
Yeah.
I moved them over a little bit because I should have taken a step to the left.
Well, I think it's remarkable that you don't work with an assistant. I personally, I can't do it. Tori or Philip,
Yeah.
generally, um, are my stick, people, and especially for like receptions. I think it's absolutely brilliant that you work without an assistant and can accomplish what you do. And I tell you, if people are working with an assistant, the one thing that because we all have had wedding coordinators and other people hold our lights for a second or whatever, and having a good assistant is remarkably different. It changes. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like upgrading your camera almost, where you really feel like, wow, like I didn't really get the shots that I wanted to this wedding. What was the difference? And every single time that happens, it's because I did not have a lighting assistant that knew what they were doing.
I had
And
my
so it's
first ever lighting assistant on New Year's Eve. First time
ah,
ever.
I loved it, Doc. Did you save your back a little bit? You feel have a little bit more energy at the end of the day?
Not particularly, because I'm still not very good at delegating, but I managed to get some really nice candids towards the evening time with the mag box. I've never used a mag box to sort of light, sort of, yeah, evening receptions and sort of, yeah, so that did help massively. But yeah, as someone who's shot for 9 years, predominantly on my own, no second shooters, no assistants, just me running around like a lunatic, and usually using either a wedding coordinator or more likely a drunk groomsman to light.
Right.
That's usually quite fun when you're like, just make sure the light is hitting the bride and groom's face. And then you'll try and do a walking shot. You're like, mate, you're lighting the grass.
Right. They're talking to their
Concentrate.
buddy, right.
And then I don't know that we get booted off. I tend to call them my bitches.
Oh, God.
They seem to like that. I don't think many people could get away with that, but generally
No,
I'll
I
ask my
think you
bride and
could.
groom ahead of time who's going to be my lighting bitch, who'll quite enjoy that. And the amount of times I'm like, where's my bitch? Come on,
That's
let's go.
awesome.
And
I
they're like,
love it.
okay. But yeah, we often have to repeat things because they're drunk or they're just enjoying doing what they're doing so much that they're not really
Yes.
looking and they're lighting the floor like 2 meters ahead of the couple. But
I've paid people that were just looking around the room, so yeah, it happens. So having that lighting assistant that really understands and knows what you guys are creating, so their heart
yeah,
is into it as well, makes a big difference. So, but I'm glad that you showed that image, because again, I think when people are out there, they're not understanding, when they look at an image like that, a lot of times people would have deleted that, and they're trying to get it. you have to understand your camera's limitations, the abilities of it, ISO
Yeah.
restrictions, know your gear, whether you got a mid-grade DSLR, you got a super high-end, I had a shot from New Year's Eve. I rented a Z9. I shoot with a Z7 II, but I'm a Nikon consignment member, so we wanted to get our last couple rentals in. So we had a Z9. I did not take the time to understand and know my gear, so my electronic shutter was on, and I got some banding in some of my shots. So and here I am, I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just, I should have known this. I should have thought
Yeah.
about that. And it just goes back to whatever camera that you got, know it like the back of your hand, like know your settings, sit at your couch and just look through the settings menu and just become familiar. I think a lot of times people don't do that. And then they don't play around with those images that come off the camera and know the capabilities, like how high can you take your ISO without it looking horrible, and
Yeah.
test your camera. And I think that was a really a great testament of a photographer knowing your camera, knowing the abilities that it had, seeing the light correctly, and then being able to bring it back and produce just an amazing image from it. So great job.
Yeah. There's much more information there than people think. And I remember back in the DSLR days, and I've known Neil for years. We haven't been a couple all that long, but yeah, we've known each other for years. And Neil trained me like many years ago. And I was obviously Canon in those days. And I know Nikon are very good. There's a lot of detail in the shadows that wasn't there with Canon. So he's always kind of taught me
Yeah.
to underexpose my images and not, blow the highlights. So yeah, that's kind of been drilled into me for many years. But Canon were much better at sort of saving highlights, so you could bring them back a
I
little
was
bit
just gonna
more,
say
a bit
Canon's had
easier.
the better on the highlights. Yep.
But you didn't have sort of the detail in the shadows quite as much. So I used to try and shoot, or I used to shoot overexposed on Canon. But yeah, with Sony, there's so much there. And I did a wedding this year where they were coming out of church for their confetti walk. And as soon as they walked out, it was very bright sunshine and then straight into shade. So I
Oh,
exposed for the highlights again. And then when they got to shade, I was 4 stops underexposed. And on the back of the camera, I couldn't even see the couple. I was like,
right.
uh-oh. And thankfully, I got home. Yeah, literally, it might have even been like 4.5 stops exposure. I think I
Yeah.
ran a bit of denoise in Lightroom, but if I didn't have that, it still would have been fine.
Yeah.
As long as
Yeah.
your ISO is correct.
Technology
So,
has definitely made it a lot easier to be able to correct stuff. But then again, like you said, like I think in this image, it was a correction, but it was an intentional correction.
yeah.
And again, use the technology that you have. And if you have an older DSLR, know that you're going to have a lot more noise in those dark spots that you bring up. But there's ways to trick your ISO with just a little bit of flash in there as well, and some other stuff. But that, again, I think my point is it's just, you knew your gear.
Yeah.
You knew where the light was, and you knew what image you had, even though that you didn't see it initially, you knew what that was going to come back to.
Yeah. I knew
And I
the
think that's an
information was
important.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're at the end. I want to wrap up. So I got 2 questions I want to ask, and then we can wrap it up. Who has, if you can recommend somebody that's been an influence to you over the years outside of Neil, everyone check out
Oh no.
check out Neil. That's a given. But who is
Literally, like,
another person? Who's another person that you feel that other people can say, hey, this person inspired Helen. I want to check this person out, so maybe I can get some of that inspiration too.
I honestly feel like it's going to be so like cliche, but I literally grew up on Two Man and Neil.
Okay. All right. And so here, 2 Men, I've brought them up before. I've had conversations with many people, and to be honest with you, I'd say 9 out of 10 people that I've talked to and brought them up, they didn't know who they were.
What?
Yeah. So again, there's another husband and wife team guys out there. Number 2 MANN, 2 Man Studios. They're UK couple, right? They're in the UK.
Canada, they're Canada.
They're Canada. Okay. Well, every time I see them, it seems like okay. So yes, they are in Canada. But another group that for me, composition wise, they're just the most insane composition photographers out there. It's mind blowing for sure.
That Alani's editing, he is a wizard.
Yeah.
And yeah, being able to watch Lani edit is, yeah, absolutely incredible.
So everyone check out those. We've listed some names. Comments. Oh, posted in the comments. Yes. So guys, check out these. And then Helen, just one last thing. What is a piece of advice that you can give those that are just they're good photographers and they're ready to step that game up. They're ready to take that journey. They're ready to start that journey. What is your advice that you can give to them to encourage them and help their journey? Do you have any advice that you could give?
Just that in
I'm putting you
general,
on the spot.
it's okay to suck. It's okay to suck. We all absolutely
Amen.
suck when we try something new. And I think that so many people are so daunted, and I myself included, I struggle so much with my own confidence in my own work. But something that someone said to me this week was just like, Helen, like, you don't realize how inspiring you are, because I know you really feel the fear. And even though all these things scare you, you go out and you do them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've progressed the way that I have. And I honestly, there's so many different things I've done in the last 12 months or so that has terrified me. But everything that you want, progress is beyond sort of your comfort zone. And if you stay in your comfort zone, you're going to stay where you are. So you have to push yourself. You have to practice, Flash especially, you have to practice an awful lot. Don't practice on wedding days. Try to do that outside as well. But really,
and don't get a secondary job to go practice at somebody else's wedding either.
yeah. But your progress is beyond your comfort zone. And I said, there's been so many things, from jumping out of a plane to like starting FlashMasters, that triggered so many insecurities in me. I'm friends with so many incredible photographers. And although I mentioned Neil and Two Man, they were who inspired me at the start to start using Flash. But like our FlashMasters ambassadors now are just insane. And to approach them when we started FlashMasters was terrifying. I have them as these huge mega celebrities in my head. And, they are within our industry, but my God, they're the nicest people ever. And now they're such great friends. I've got to remember where I'm going with this, but I said, you have to push yourself beyond that. And instead of looking to these people and just going, well, I can't do that, you have to start taking those steps. And for as long as you go, that's not attainable for me, then it's not going to be. So the only thing you have to do is learn. And like I said, it's that education, it's investing in yourself, education over equipment every day of the week.
Every day.
You can create so much with just one speed light. It doesn't need to be inexpensive. You don't need all the gear if you've got no idea. So education, practice, and everything that you want is on the other side of what scares you. So the more time you allow yourself to feel that fear and not take action, the longer you're going to be stagnant. So join FlashMasters otherwise. Learn from the most incredible educators in the entire world and be inspired. And I think it's so easy, and I could easily be someone in this community who just go, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm never going to reach that, therefore I'm not going to try. And that's just the easy way out. I think that's the
definition of courage. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot of courage, because as a photographer, you start to begin to have expectations from people. Then people are starting to pay you for these expectations. I remember failing at a workshop the first time, and it was with color correction gels. I was trying to do the CTOs and make the warmer sky. It wasn't working, and I had like 12 people sitting there watching me, and I'm sitting there falling apart. It would not work. I couldn't get it to do anything. And then I took that really personally. And then the second time that I completely failed was during conditions. One of my creative sports lighting workshops, I had a media day before, so I invited the workshop attendees to join my media day just to kind of watch behind the scenes before the workshop the next day. So I had like 7 of my attendees that came out for this thing. The wind's blowing crazy. The sun's super bright. My fog's not staying anywhere. I don't have anywhere to shoot to get any type of draw. Like I'm literally like challenged in every single way.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there thinking about all the conversations and feelings that I had the first time that I failed. And I just looked at these guys and was like, hey, I'm failing in every regards right now. So I want you guys to look at me. I got clients that are going to be here in 15 minutes. I need to be ready to go, guys. And I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So I want you to let you know, I want you to see this and let you know that it happens to no matter who you are, what you're doing, shit happens. And it's okay. And you know what? Every single one of those guys said to me afterwards, Richard, I learned so much from watching you fail and how you overcame them and what you did and how your process was. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. So it was a realization that sometimes you learn, and I guess a lot of times you learn so much more than just what you failed at. If you failed at that one thing, you probably learned 5 other things from it. So failing is okay. Sucking is cool. It's fine. Just keep on driving and keep on trying, keep on practicing and keep on learning. That's great, great advice.
We're all on different stages of the journey. And when we looked at Tim Camperton as one sort of photographer of the year for FlashMasters, he started in 2009. This isn't some kind of overnight success. And it's so easy to see the best of other people and go, oh, look, but look what they're doing without realizing the hours and hours and years of work that's gone into that. You know, we're all on different stages. And I think those who we see progress the most within the community, who are those people, instead of just looking at it going, well, I'm never going to do that. I can't be that. Like, adios, I'm out of here. Like, it's the people who go, yes, these images are incredible. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to show up to the live streams. I'm going to ask questions in the group. And it's those people who you see the most growth from. So yeah, instead of just looking at other, you know, when you see all the showstoppers, instead of just being intimidated and going, oh, well, I'm never going to get there. It's using that as, you know, as your inspiration, as your drive to reach the next level. And know that everyone who took those photos, they all sucked at some point. And they will have
their photos were just as bad as anyone
of howlers, you know, and regardless of where you are and how far you go, we all started somewhere back there using sepia with color popping, out of focus, and tried to turn on a flash in manual when we only knew TTL and it turned out white. And that's what happened to me. And I hid my first flash for a year and a half because I turned it on. It was in manual. I took like 3 exposures. They're all bright white. And I'm like, it's not for me.
Not for me, right?
And yeah, it took me probably a year and a half, 2 years to even pull that out of the box again when I started training. So yeah, we will all suck. But yeah, you've just got to put those hours into it, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah. And guys, you are in the right spot with this group, with FlashMasters. And again, for us US people, it's not com. It's not COM, it's just CO. So it's not a typo. It's flashmasters.co. So really explore that field. Check out Jason as he's coming up here in just a couple of weeks. We got Jesse, so check out his brand as well, guys. These are all people that just will inspire you and drive you and push you to reach those goals that you want to get to. So Helen Hunt, thank you so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure to hear your voice. It's great to see you. And man, it's been an honor to have you spend your late evening over there in the UK with you. So it's
1:45 in the morning.
Yeah, it's pretty late, man. So thank you for taking the time, and pass our best on to Neil.
I will.
And we look forward to seeing you in the next FlashMasters podcast, and we're excited about all the new things that you have, guys, going on over there. So.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being part of the community and supporting our community. Without photographers like you and all of your incredible work and entries, you know, we wouldn't be the community that we are. So thank you for all your support. And yeah, big up the Michigan State, because you guys you're absolutely rocking it.
We're going to keep it rocking. So have a great night, hon. And it was great talking with you. And hopefully we'll have a chance to connect again soon.
Thank you.
All
Goodbye.
right. Have a great night. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for joining in. Take care.